answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, Chicago Public Schools. Same old, don't ever change. Chicago Board of Education on Thursday approved a resolution during a special meeting that affirms the values of the Chicago public school system. I'd love to hear what those allegedly are.
What is that?
They're going to protect students from federal immigration officials, whoever here is here illegally. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. You and
like, I wonder.
You and Jelly Belly and Brandon Johnson can continue to beat your chests for the local audience. Tom Homan, point man on border enforcement and the deportation programs that will be initiated when Trump takes office. He was on with Don Trump Jr. and summed up what we can expect upon his taking office and beginning to enact Trump's agenda here. He summed it up in 3 words.
But what's your overarching message to Americans who are eager for major border action on minute one, like Inauguration Day, 1 second in? How much will you be able to improve the life of everyday Americans?
I got 3 words for him. Shock and awe. Shock and awe.
I love it.
You're going to see us take this country back. And look, like I said before, it isn't just about the deportation operation. It isn't just about saving the children. It ain't about securing the border. What's the result? Less overdose deaths, less sex trafficking. For God's sakes, one of the worst crimes around. Less migrants dying. Under this administration, over 4,000 aliens have died crossing that border, an historic record. When President Trump, had immigration on 90%, had that border shut down, he saved thousands of lives. So less aliens die, less Americans die. Wages will increase because you're not going to have all that illegal labor working for pennies on a dollar up here. Sex trafficking is going to vastly increase. This country is going to be alien crime. You're going to see that reduced significantly. As far as Trenda, Agua, and MS-13, a notice to you, my gang's bigger than your gang, and we're going to take you out too. So I can't wait to get started.
Can't wait for him to get started because, of course, that statement comes against the backdrop of the trial right now against the illegal immigrant accused of killing Laken Riley. That's going on as we speak.
Well, it's horrible. I mean, I had no idea. Friday's testimony, I was listening in, and she struggled for 18 minutes. She was fighting back against that monster. And he couldn't even look up. Like during this, the translation headsets on, and he didn't even look up and make eye contact with anybody because he knows.
She fought for 18 minutes before he crushed her head in with a rock. What's interesting is our friends to the north in Strange Brewland, Bob and Doug McKenzie's residents, who elected that grade school drama teacher, their prime minister, and who've now soured on said grade school drama teacher, Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau is doing an about-face on immigration.
Oh, he is? Trying to save his job?
After, trying to save his party's viability at present, with Polyev in the offing. It'll be another part of this counter-revolution if we get Polyev in Canada. But all of the haranguing and demonizing of people opposed to open borders over the period of his term, just like the left has done in this country. And now Justin Trudeau is striking a incredibly more conciliatory note. Isn't this interesting?
Immigration. Let's talk about it. In the last 2 years, our population has grown really fast, like baby boom fast. And increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests. So we're doing something major. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years. Today, I'm going to let you in on what happened, where we made some mistakes, and why we're taking the this big turn.
He's so obnoxious. I mean, he's cutting it 20% over the next 3 years, and he's trying to pin this on, as you heard, big corporations and colleges and universities up in Canada, because of course he's not going to accept responsibility for the lawlessness he engendered. Just like we have a political ruling class in D.C. that won't accept responsibility for the lawlessness they engendered.
And I think people in Chicago are waking up because they wanted to raise our property taxes in part to pay for people who are here illegally.
Yeah.
He needs $300 million. He needs $300 million for this. He needs for that.
There's a little bit of caterwauling, but I wouldn't characterize what's going on as the people of Chicago generally waking up. For more on all of this, we're pleased to be joined by Tom Weitzel, retired chief of police, village of Riverside. Tom, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, Dane and Amy.
So we have this curious case of the disconnect between federal law enforcement, as you heard from Tom Homan, and state and local law enforcement in the sanctuary state and county of Illinois and Cook. So, if you were still on the job as a suburban police chief, how would you navigate this when Tom Homan and company come knocking for assistance, but you're the police chief in a village that is in a sanctuary state?
Yeah, it would be really tricky because, Illinois being the sanctuary state, we're basically, law enforcement is told not to cooperate with the federal government, especially ICE. So, and they take away your funding if you do cooperate with them. And I'm talking about grant funding, both state grant funding and federal funding. And I can tell you without a doubt that if you just took the suburbs, most of the suburban politicians would tell their police chiefs, do not cooperate with ICE, no matter what it is. I mean, it could be somebody that has a detainer for homicide and they don't consider it a warrant. They're going to direct you. And if you violate that, I can tell you that your political organization, whether that's a village president, a mayor, city council, they're going to try to remove you. So, the police chiefs are in this position like they've worked their whole career to get up the ladder in most cases, and now you have to decide whether you're going to go against what the politicians tell you because it's a really egregious situation, or you're going to toe the line. Me personally, I would fall on the side of law enforcement. I was fortunate to have a good city council and a good city manager. Stuff. I think they would support that. But I certainly wouldn't, just roll over. But you won't find a lot of police chiefs doing that because they don't want to give up the position they have. Let's be honest about it. They don't want to give up their future pensions. They just don't when you're given that directive.
But here's the opportunity, it seems to me, and if we had some sort of organized opposition party, maybe they could direct this. But where you do have sensible police chiefs and sensible village officials, we saw this actually starting last year a little bit. Resolutions passed by the village that say we're not going to abide the sanctuary. We're going to be a sanctuary community from the sanctuary state legislation or the sanctuary state resolution. So we are going to work with ICE and daring Pritzker, a la the showdowns during COVID. You want to come in? Then bring it and we'll litigate it. Yeah, at some point you need leadership. You're not going to get leadership from the General Assembly. They've proven that. But maybe leadership from some police chiefs in, as you say, friendly towns like Riverside that have good village officials to drive this debate a little bit rather than just sort of sitting back and taking it at the expense of public safety.
Yeah, for sure. And not only I tell you who drives it actually right now in Illinois are sheriffs because they're elected, right? So they're right. Not afraid to go ahead and they're doing it. But the major police organizations such as maybe the Illinois Police Chiefs Association, some of these other associations, they're not lobbying hard enough, or they're not challenging on behalf of police chiefs in Illinois this sanctuary state where you can't cooperate with ICE. And it's not only the detainers. We're directed to not even look at their database to help us during investigations. I mean, and there's a lot of good information on individuals that gang ties, tattoos that'll break cases. It's something as simple as that they're already in the ICE database. We're forbidden to access that. I mean, just think about that. There's this large database that could absolutely help us that we're forbidden from accessing. That's the type of things they need to push back against, because these are real violent criminals. They're victims in your communities. Their families are suffering. You have a path to help them certainly clear your cases. And I'm not talking about like retail theft. I'm talking about serious violent crime. And we still can't do that. And I will tell you, Dan, that there are police agencies, and I think your listeners will know this, that do that under the radar. I mean, if they think that they're not contacting ICE on the very fringe ends, they're wrong. They're like calling them and saying, hey, we picked up this guy for a DUI. He's got a retainer for sexual assault. You know what? Here's his home address. So when we booked him into custody, here's where he's living. Then they hang up the phone. And then he's released from your facility. I mean, he's released from Riverside, for example. But ICE will go based on the address given by us during the booking process. And maybe that's not, people don't think that's the right thing to do, but there is some of that going on, I will tell you for sure.
Well,
no, I think it is the right thing to do.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. How many departments do you think are doing that in Illinois?
I think some of the departments in suburban Cook County, certainly in DuPage and Will, the farther you get away from Chicago, I think the more prevalent it is.
Yeah, but I mean, this idea that, you're passing notes at recess, you have to have like whistleblowers effectively and uniform because of the asinine posture that the state and Cook County and some of these other counties, frankly, have taken too, is just, I mean, it should spark a revolt, but what should happen and what does in Illinois. Big other news, though, of course, can't focus too much on public safety, and we zero in on BLM Brandon, and we zero in on Kim Foxx and what's happening in Chicago and to some extent Cook County, but let's not forget the provider of the Safety Act, the Pritzker-Purge Law, the eponymous Pritzker-Purge Law, Governor Pritzker. His focus this week, it's Transgender Awareness Week. I want you to know that I see you and have your back as governor. Illinois has enshrined protections for gender-affirming care to meet this moment. Because of that, you will always have a home here. I don't think there was going to be any resettlement of trans people from Illinois to other states, so I really have no idea what he's talking about. But this is what you get from the political leadership in the state. What has Governor Pritzker been obsessing about since Trump's election? Mandatory prayer in school, which nobody's proposed, abortion tourism, which nobody's proposed stopping, and providing sex change surgeries in Illinois, which which at least for adults is not really in controversy. I mean, it's just I don't know how you and your colleagues in law enforcement view this guy, but I mean he is, to me, he is even worse than BLM Brandon or Lori Lightfoot before him or Kim Foxx. I mean, this is somebody who is cravenly. He's not an ideologue the way that BLM Brandon is. He's not an apparatchik, not a red. He is cravenly, cynically playing these silly cultural war games to direct attention away from the disintegration of the state, starting with public safety.
Yeah, when I saw that statement that we have your back, I thought to myself, wow, he's never said that about law enforcement.
Yeah, right.
Like, why not a public statement like that, like we have your back? That would go a long way. But the reality is he doesn't, and that's the truth, and he's demonstrated that. So that was my response, is like, do you have law enforcement's back? Do you have our, do you allow us to do our job? Can you fund us better? Could you give us some leadership in that public safety arena? And he hasn't done that, and I think that's well documented. I don't think you'll find too many law enforcement officers that support his administration because they haven't supported police. And that's one reason I was asked recently is, why do cops support Trump. And I said, it's really simple. Like, all my kids are police officers. They support Trump because he supports police, and he backs up police, and he publicly, states that. And if we had a governor that would do that, I think you would start to see law enforcement like maybe turn the corner as far as our political leaders. Like, okay, well, they do have our back. They do have programs that'll help us, and they're not all interested in just giving us consent decrees to put on our departments for the next 20 years because of one mistake along the way or something like that. They smear the whole profession. They smear the whole department. And that's the way it's looked at by law enforcement.
Well, they're looking at it with clear eyes because that's exactly what's happening. That's why it's looked at that way, as you know. Tom Weitzel, retired chief of police, Village of Riverside. Tom, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good morning.
You too, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
I love giving jewelry as a gift. Roland's Jewelers is the perfect place for that magical holiday gift. Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. Roland's Jewelers is the absolute perfect place for the magical holiday gift for someone you love.